This is Outnumbered. I'm Andrea Tantaros, and here with us today, Harris Faulkner. She's the host of Money with Melissa Francis on our favorite sister network, Fox Business, Melissa Francis. Also from Fox Business, we've got Dagan McDowell back from Imus in the Morning, and today's hashtag.
I certainly am.
Okay, now we have had some amazing mustaches on this couch. From Geraldo. No, that's you got it. Very diplomatic of you. You're a diplomat, I get it. But
I just did.
Yeah, you just did.
Plain almond sideburns, like big mutton chops for years. I'm going to work on
Keep trying, sure.
Great look.
to see you
That would
again.
be a perfect look.
All right, let's get started. Jordan's King Abdullah saying that it's just the beginning as his nation ramps up the war against ISIS. Ambassador Bolton, Speaker Boehner came out and he said, look, this is well and good. We've been using airstrikes against ISIS. A couple things. Why is the president going to Congress now? Number one. And doesn't he, as Boehner says, need to make the case himself?
Well, I think the president's very $1 billion, frankly. They now control a territory the size of Great Britain. Admittedly, a lot of it's sand, but it's still pretty extensive. They've created a central bank. They've created a currency. They have a national budget that puts them ahead of us. They are building a state, pathetically in some respects, but every day that goes by that we don't challenge them allows them to build up their staying power.
One of the reports I did yesterday, John Bolton, the timing is just so perfect, spot on for this. I want to know exactly.
And others, they couldn't care less what we think.
Yeah, and you heard Shepard say the last.
People are watching this, and Jordan's.
So where does this propel us at this point? So if he continues.
This week we heard the president at the White House react to the killing in that atrocious way of the Jordanian pilot. And he mentioned ISIS being an organization, and he said whatever ideology they ascribe to. But he also said what he said after James Foley's beheading, which was, I'm going to work to build an international coalition. It's the same talking point. He clearly hasn't done that. I find it very hard to believe that he's going to be able to coalesce the Muslim world, which you just referenced, behind him, or any coalition behind him, if he can't really articulate a strong case. Last night, or I should say yesterday, he also said the U.S. should get off its high horse. You see an American killed. We're working to confirm that. He's continuing to blame the United States of America. What is it going to take? I mean, you mentioned that you heard Shep say this is the last chit. I mean, you just said the propensity for ISIS to kidnap more Americans is very high. What happens if that's next? More kidnappings, more... Ambassador Bolton, a lot of people pretty outraged at those comments yesterday, especially in light of what's happening in the Middle East. Your thoughts?
With you, because I take my family to church every Sunday.
That religious fanaticism has led to depravity over the centuries. But that's not the point.
Well, there's so much wrong with what he said.
I know. When he should be saying what Ambassador Bolton is saying, standing up for the peaceful version of Islam as somebody who's trying to protect it, which we know that he is, right? Why doesn't he say that? Why doesn't he make that case and say they've perverted Islam rather than conflate Christianity wrongly with Islam, or try and say they're equally as bad?
Or it's the evil that needs...
Said some things like that. Taken office. There's a lot. I mean, he could have had one pretty much inapplicable to what has been going on. But that aside, I do think the timing is interesting. We don't know all the notes and details that came out of that meeting because only so much has been made public. But I call this radical Islam. Like, I don't know Christians who don't call it that. Like, we understand
of Christianity led to the end.
I mean, Ambassador Bolton, when he mentioned the Spanish Inquisition, where 100 people died, not by the church killing them on a witch hunt, it was by Spanish authorities. And you think about those 100 people that died, that's a normal lunch break for Boko Haram.
Yeah, look, by referring to the Crusades, he validated one of Al-Qaeda and ISIS as the worst. I think he's probably second to the bottom. I'd put Mao in contact with what happens. But, you know, a Secretary of State can't shine in an era when he's got a president who pursues the policies this one has. So in fairness to Kerry, it's a very hard road that he's on.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. Can you really blame the Secretary of State when the old saying says the fish stinks from the head?
Love it.
Where a Secretary of State can achieve greatness is in times of crisis. That's why Henry Kissinger's #1, because in the second Nixon term and into the Ford administration, he was required really to run American foreign policy in a way that when you had a functioning president, unlike Nixon, made a lot of mistakes.
Shines a light on our...
This is the NATO alliance, for God's sakes.
All right, so a few weeks ago, there was this march of 1 million people.
policy. That's why the discussion we have about that kind of symbolic.
Right, we'll move on. It's being
is resolved. Again, wow, Harris. It's amazing that anyone in that country gets out of their Speedo and actually even goes to work. But he's never really worn a tie to begin with, and I don't think he's going to be wearing one anytime soon.
Speedo on under that suit. What makes you think he got out? Right in the water.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Francis Friday, ladies and gentlemen.
It reflects the state of the economy, which would be.
That's the official.
Let me get the ambassador in here. I don't foresee him ever wearing a tie anytime soon.
Greece has to exit the European Currency Union. It's a political project. It's not an economic project. I think this is the first stage of cracking up.
I talked to one diner owner, shocker, and I said to him, what do you think? He said, well, we created democracy. We can take the next couple hundred years off. And I can say that. I'm allowed. Ambassador Bolton, it was a real treat having you today.
My pleasure.
Thank you so very
Glad
much. We are back on TV Monday at noon Eastern. Have a great weekend, everybody. Happening Now starts right now.